Welcome to our fourth video in our series titled Introduction to Marshall Goldsmith Coaching. In this video, we will look at our final principle that serves as a foundation for our methodology we call stakeholder-centered coaching. Now remember, in our prior videos, we looked at the first principle being involving stakeholders. The second principle is about emphasizing the future and feed forward. And today, we're going to focus on changing behavior and perception. You know, since we started coaching, we had the naive view that all we had to do was to help a leader change behavior. Now, that by itself, tough. It's not easy for someone to change their behavior. And in fact, you know, we have asked countless people, use a scale. 1 on the one hand being very easy, all the way up to 10 on the other side, extremely difficult. How hard is it for an adult to change an ingrained habit? Now, you know what the answer we get? Almost all answers are in the range of 8, 9, 10. Right? So we all acknowledge this is not an easy task. Now, let me give you just a trite but real example from my own life. I tried to change a habit not too long ago. For over 70 years, I parted my hair the opposite of what you see. My wife told me, I think you should part your hair on the other side. I said, okay, I'll try. What's the big deal? So I start every morning combing my hair. I couldn't believe how many times I combed it the old way as I was forming this new habit. Now, I persisted, I changed, right? So now, right, part my hair correct way. But what was interesting is now I'm in this phase where I think I'm parting my hair the same way now, my new habit. And during the day, I'll kind of scratch my head and go, wait a minute. I parted my hair the old way. Didn't realize it when I did it. So I had reverted to my old habit. One thing we know about this stuff, change takes a lot of time and conscious effort. This sculpture you see right here, we bought that in 1990 when we were leaving California and the hometown I grew up in called Pacific Palisades, and we're heading for a new life in Portland, Oregon. And this sculpture has some real significant meaning to us. The artist is Michael Wilkinson, and he created this in the early days of this type of sculpting, and it's called Futurity. Love it. It's a woman leaning into her future. Very symbolic for us. We were changing where we were going to live. Now, the same applies symbolically for a leader announcing to their stakeholders that they're going to improve in some behavior. They're leaning forward into the future. Now the stakeholders are involved. And we can ask the same question. They have a perception of this leader, right? Who this leader is. Now let's ask the same question I asked earlier about how hard is it to change someone's perception, someone's opinion, someone's beliefs about another human being that they know, right? Let's go back. 1 easy, 10 very difficult. How hard is it to change somebody's opinion of somebody else? And you know what the answer is? All those people we asked that first question about changing behavior and habits, they actually give either the same or a higher number for changing someone's opinion. One thing we've also discovered here, when we started really focusing, understanding the stakeholders part of this game, was that they have a gap between when the leader actually makes a positive change and they, on the other hand, recognize that change and change their perception. There's a gap. Now, why? Why is there a delay? There's probably many reasons, but the one we like to think about is something called the confirmation bias. Now, the confirmation bias does a good job of explaining, well, why is there a gap delay in stakeholders recognizing and acknowledging a change a leader's actually making? Well, think about the first question I asked in this video. How hard is it for an adult to change an ingrained habit? Guess what? It's hard. And so if we see a leader changing, that rubs up against this belief, and we have a tendency to say, I'm not sure this person has actually changed yet. Add to that we're not perfect human beings. Like, look at me. I was trying to just do something simple like changing the way I parted my hair, and I messed up. Went back to my old way of behaving. Someone sees a leader have a bad day around what they're working on, you know what they have a tendency to say? Oh, the real Frank Wagner just showed up. I guess they're really not changing. So there's a big difference between 10 successful changes and 1 regression. Confirmation bias weights 1 a lot more than the larger number. So here's the good news. What's the good news? We have seen countless leaders, we've done this now for 20 years, actually make positive change in behavior under 1 condition. They actually, in a disciplined way, use stakeholder-centered coaching, right? And we've seen that all their stakeholders actually overcome their confirmation bias and acknowledge after recognizing the change in behavior and give the leader credit, which is what they need to hear. So we have happy endings on this. It just takes time. So in our next video, in our last video, what do you think we're going to deal with? Let's talk about those stakeholders, right? What's the role of the stakeholder, and how does a good stakeholder do their job? See you next time. Thanks for watching.